One day, Johnny was taking trash out to be burned in this big garbage pit that they're just incinerating the fire. And in the trash pile, he noticed something that looked like a human hand. And he pointed it out to his friend and was like, oh my God, is that a freaking hand? And his friend looks at him and is like, shh, don't ever repeat that. Don't ever do that again, because you're going to be in the pile next. They opened in 1900. The school was formally shut down in 2011. And when it was finally shut down, there was a massive graveyard found with countless children buried in the back that nobody knew for 100+ years. I find that very hard to believe, don't you? And the only way that you could get into that school was to be a bit of a troublemaker. Now, the definition of troublemaker is really loose. That meant a lot of the kids were just thrown into the school if adults were just tired of dealing with them for whatever reason. Now, Ed Adams was a former student of Dozier. He got out alive, and he tried to live his best life. He thought when he got out of Dozier, life would change, things would get better, but at night it was the worst. Whenever he closed his eyes, he was back in that room, that bloody white room. And in 2009, Ed passed away, but he left a note for his wife and children, and it was like his last will and testament. So he had 2 dying wishes. Ed wrote, the first wish was that he wanted to transfer his Elvis songs from cassette to a disc, and the other wish was to tell everybody how he had been abused at the Florida School for Boys. So a lot of victims started to come out over the time, and they called themselves the White House Boys. This White House that we're talking about today was the most dangerous. It was a shed, a small building. It looked more like a shed, and the one-armed man was getting ready. He was holding a leather strap. He had different sizes. It was like his little toolbox. The students would lie down, and they heard it before they felt it. That's what they all said. They would hear him shuffling his feet as if you're getting ready to, I don't know, throw the bowling ball down the lane, like you're preparing for something. All the students could barely walk out of the White House. They would have to pull, because they were still clothed when this happened. Their clothes would be embedded in the lacerations. Sometimes the staff would drag 2 to 3 boys in at a time, and sometimes if they were mad at you for whatever it was, they would drag you out of your bed in the dark of night, and you would be dragged by your arms through the lawns into the White House for your beating. Johnny was sent to Dozier for a stutter. He had a stutter, and the kids bullied him relentlessly, and he was so stressed out that he skipped school. The police came to his house to see him and told him, hey, you skipped school, so we need to take you before a judge because you skipped school. Yeah, there was no judge. That's how Johnny found himself at Dozier. It was bad. The minute that he got there, one of the staff members got up in his face and said, and I quote, boy, your life is gonna change. And you're like, okay, how is this legal? How are the cops sending boys here? How is this even operating? A teacher threw Johnny and a 6-year-old boy, let's call him Frank, they were thrown out to go cut down a tree. Which, like, again, this kid is 11 and the other kid is 6. Do I need to remind you, like, how are you going to cut down a tree? It was a big tree. Johnny said Frank could barely hold the handle. I mean, of course. He said he was so weak and little, when Johnny pushed like this, Frank would just fall down onto the ground. So Johnny is trying to help him back up because he knows that they're going to the White House if they don't cut down this tree and if they don't do it freaking fast. And when the staff saw him help the 6-year-old boy, they got mad. They were like, why are you helping him? And they dragged both of them into the White House to be punished. And instead of letting him go to a nurse, Johnny was told to go to the cafeteria so he could send a message to all the other boys that, and I quote, we're not playing with you boys. And the worst part is, technically, Johnny is considered one of the lucky boys. Because at least he made it out alive. That's what they would tell him. One time, a student went to the White House to be punished, and he saw another boy, severely injured and limp in the corner, and he was not moving. And one day, Johnny was taking trash out to be burned in this big garbage pit that they're just incinerating the fire, and in the trash pile, he noticed something that looked like a human hand. And he pointed it out to his friend and was like, oh my God, is that a freaking hand? And his friend looks at him and is like, shh, don't ever repeat that. Don't ever do that again, because you're going to be in the pile next. Nobody wants anyone to find out what's happening here. The White House Boys, a group of survivors that came together to seek justice in 2009, by then, like I said, most of them were seniors, and it was heartbreaking. One of them, named Stu, said that before he went into the White House for a beating, he was waiting outside. He could hear all of his friends screaming inside for their lives. He bent over and picked up this small pebble that caught his eye. And he was rolling it between his fingers, and he just noticed how smooth it was and how good it felt. He kept it in his pocket for the rest of his life. And later, when he was telling this story, 50, 60 years later, he still had that pebble. So the state of Florida launched an inspection, and Dozier failed the inspection and was finally shut down in 2011. And if you're like, wait, what about the beginning of the story? What about Jack? Did he not call the police on Dozier about what he saw? What about the reporter that went? They did. They tried to draw attention, but nobody cared. Authorities inspected Dozier, found horrible things, like the fact that the boys were being forced to lie down on their stomachs, and then their wrists and ankles were shackled together. They were hogtied. Authorities had found boys as young as 5 years old being beaten, shackled, and starved, and hired out as free labor. So, like, if you owned a farm nearby in Florida, you could hire these random boys for free. But the school was like, I pinky promise that we're gonna do better. And the authorities were like, okay, fine, you silly goose, we trust you. And the school remained open. And then not too long after that, there was a fire at the school. 6 boys and 2 staff members died because they were trapped in the dorm. Now, authorities were like, wait, what do you mean they were trapped in the dorm? Yeah, well, we lock it so they can't escape. Instead of shutting down the school, they were just like, we're going to fire the superintendent and you guys need a new superintendent. And that is how Arthur Dozier took over the school. He was a really humble dude. So humble, in fact, that he renamed the school from Florida School for Boys to Dozier School for Boys. Honestly, some prisons might have been safer and more sanitary, yet the school kept running. Like, the governor visited and was like, this is going to create criminals. But the school kept running. The authorities were like, can you not take too many people in? And eventually, Dozier School for Boys did get security cameras later on, right? But legend has it, the workers would smear Vaseline onto the cameras to make it super blurry. So you can't see much, but a video did get out in 2007 of a young 18-year-old boy named Justin Caldwell who was being assaulted by the guards. And in 2012, after 1 year of being shut down, the state authorized a forensic anthropology survey by the University of South Florida. Because there had been so many rumors and more talks, one survivor remembered that he and another boy were forced to dig 3 holes in the ground outside the cafeteria in the dead of night. They documented nearly 100 deaths, behind the school. 3 times as many black students as white students were buried at Dozier, and in 2017, the state held a formal ceremony to apologize personally to 24 survivors and to families of other victims. So they went out there for like a pollution cleanup, and they found another 27 suspected graves, hinting that there would be a lot more bodies than previously suspected buried around Dozier. And that is the story of the Dozier School for Boys.